Have you ever smelled something so strongly that for a brief moment you could almost taste it? Maybe the smell of freshly baked bread suddenly filled your mouth with the memory of sweetness, or the scent of smoke made you imagine something bitter. Or perhaps you caught a familiar smell from childhood, and before you even understood what was happening, your mind had already created a taste that wasn't actually there. But here's the strange part. There may be no food in front of you. Nothing touching your tongue. Nothing entering your mouth. And yet your brain can make you feel as though you're tasting something that doesn't exist. So why? Why can a smell sometimes feel like a taste? The answer begins with something you probably take for granted every second of your life. Your senses are not as separate as you think. We like to imagine the world arriving through neat little doors. Your eyes see. Your ears hear. Your nose smells. Your tongue tastes. But inside your brain, those doors are not nearly as separate. They're connected, and smell and taste are especially intertwined. When you eat something, your tongue detects basic tastes like sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. But that's only part of what you experience as flavor. The rest comes largely from your sense of smell. And this is why food suddenly becomes strangely bland when your nose is blocked. Your tongue is still working, but something is missing. Your brain has lost access to a huge part of the information it normally uses to construct flavor. Because flavor isn't simply sitting inside the food. Your brain builds it. And that's where things become much stranger. When you smell something, molecules travel into your nose and activate receptors connected to your olfactory system. That information eventually reaches brain regions involved in memory, emotion, and perception. And because these systems are deeply interconnected, a smell doesn't always remain just a smell. It can awaken memories, emotions, images, and sometimes even sensations associated with taste. Think about the smell of something intensely familiar. Maybe oranges, maybe coffee, maybe the particular smell of a meal your grandmother used to make. You don't simply recognize the smell. For a moment, your brain may reconstruct an entire experience around it. The taste, the texture, the feeling, the place, even the person. And you may suddenly find yourself experiencing something that isn't physically happening anymore. Your brain still remembers. But here's what scientists discovered that makes this even more fascinating. Smell has an unusually powerful connection to memory because olfactory information reaches brain regions closely associated with emotion and memory, including the amygdala and hippocampus. That's part of why a smell can transport you somewhere faster than a photograph. You can forget a face. You can forget a conversation. But then one day, a smell appears from nowhere. And suddenly, you're 8 years old again. Standing in a kitchen you haven't seen in decades. Listening to a voice you haven't heard in years. Feeling something you thought you had forgotten. The smell didn't actually take you backward. Your brain did. And this is where everything changes. Because perhaps memory isn't really a recording of the past. Perhaps it's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, your brain rebuilds an experience from pieces of information stored across different networks. And smell can become one of the keys that unlocks those pieces. That familiar scent doesn't contain your childhood. It simply activates the neural pathways connected to your childhood experiences. Your brain fills in the rest. And sometimes, it fills in the taste, too. This is also why certain smells can make you salivate before you've consciously decided that you're hungry. Your brain has learned associations. Smell something delicious enough times, and your nervous system begins predicting what comes next. The smell says, food is coming. Your body prepares. Saliva increases. Your attention changes. Your brain begins constructing the expected experience before the experience even arrives. In other words, your brain doesn't always wait for reality. Sometimes it predicts reality. And this happens constantly. You don't experience the world exactly as it is. You experience the brain's best interpretation of what is happening. Every smell, every sound, every sensation, every memory. Your brain is constantly taking incomplete information and turning it into something that feels complete. And that should make you pause. Because if your brain can create the sensation of taste from a smell, What else is it capable of creating? How much of what you experience is coming directly from the outside world? And how much is your brain quietly constructing behind the scenes? The terrifying part is that you usually can't tell the difference. When you remember the taste of something from childhood, you don't experience the memory as a mathematical prediction. You experience it as reality. Your mouth may almost water. Your mind may almost taste it. Your emotions may return. And for a few seconds, something that existed years ago can feel present again. But it isn't present. It's a reconstruction. A ghost assembled from electrical activity inside your skull. And perhaps that's why smell can feel so haunting. A photograph shows you what something looked like. A recording lets you hear what something sounded like. But a smell can sometimes make you feel like the past has physically returned. And maybe that's because smell doesn't simply remind you of moments. Sometimes, it makes your brain rebuild the world around them. So the next time a smell suddenly makes you taste something, don't dismiss it as imagination. Your brain may be doing something far more extraordinary. It is taking a few invisible molecules floating through the air and turning them into memory, emotion, expectation, taste, and perhaps even a version of you that no longer exists. Because the strangest thing about being human may not be that we remember the past. It's that the past can still reach into the present without touching us at all. A smell enters your nose. Your brain finds an old memory. And suddenly, for just a moment, you taste something that isn't there. Maybe that's what memory really is. Not a place we can return to, but a world our brain can briefly rebuild. And sometimes, all it needs is a smell. For more, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel.